In the village hidden in the leaves, the legacy of the Fourth Hokage resonates through the generations, leaving an indelible mark on the ninja world. We find a narrative woven with sacrifice, love, and the unrelenting pursuit of peace. His journey, though vastly different from his sons and grandsons, which echoes through the ages, leaving behind a legacy that continues to shape the destiny of the leaf. Data set the diver calibration tuned to the Naruto world. And while we're diving into the world of Naruto, if you could hit that subscribe and join in on the adventure as I use reverse pure world summoning jutsu and bring in Minato for commentary. Minato entered the Leaf's Village Academy with the dream of becoming Hokage. When Kushina moved to the Leaf Village, she was placed in the same class. Minato was immediately drawn to her bright red hair, finding it beautiful, but that very same hair that he found beautiful, others saw it as material to tease and bully her. But that would be nothing compared to what Hollywood would do if they got their hands on her.
Master, I'm not following you with that statement.
Naruto would become biracial because Kushina would be cast as a black woman just because she has red hair.
I don't know of this Hollywood you speak of, but even at that age Kushina was able to take care of herself both inside and outside of the academy. Even though we both became Jinnin, we wasn't assigned to the same team, but when she went missing and was taken by Shinobi of the Cloud Village, I quickly left to retrieve her, and I made clear my feelings for her. I almost lost her without telling her how I felt. I was somehow lucky enough to be assigned to Master Jiraiya, one of the 3 Sannin. His way of teaching was unique to say the least, but his wisdom on the way of the world gave him unique insights on ninjutsu. It was also during this time that Kushina was made into the host of the Nine-Tails Fox. Like her, other villages also had tailed beasts sealed inside of their shinobi. This union birthed powerful ninja, but they were unstable and prone to outbursts of aggression. I sometimes wonder if those rumors were true, as Kushina never showed signs of that. Or I never noticed, because even before she became a Jinchuriki she was already prone to violence.
History says you went on and completed many missions, and it was then while on a mission that your Team 6 were ambushed by the Stone Village Jinchurikis. If it wasn't for the fact that you learned the Flying Thunder God technique, you were able to make it out alive, but everyone was very close to death that day.
After I warped myself and my team to safety, I took inspiration from the tailed beast ball, researching its nature, and begun a 3-year process of creating a new jutsu with Kushina in the event she was called to action and came face to face with another Jinchuriki. With her volume of chakra, if I recreated jutsu like the tailed beast ball, she would not need to transform to hold such power, giving her the edge in a fight. With Jiraiya Sensei's help, I tried and failed many times. I couldn't grasp how the tail beast were molding their chakra into a ball that's so dense with chakra. When I got an idea on I might needed to do, I went to Kushina to tell her I wouldn't be able to train with her that day. She didn't take to kindly of me skipping out on her. I even told her what I would be doing and where I was going to be. I had nothing to hide from her. It was just that if anyone was to get hurt during its creation, I don't know how I would be able to handle it, plus Jiraiya Sensei would be there offering me pointers and even methods I could try out. He told me that ninja of old used to need chakra in the direction of the swirl in their hair, and even he himself does that. However, I had 2 that went in opposite directions, so you can say that knowing that at first didn't help much. But it was during that break that he got us an ice pop that you can either break into 2 halves or eat as one whole. It was at that moment it came to me what it was I was missing, and lo and behold, the ice pop inspired Nimbus Jiraiya Twin World Sphere was born.
Please do us all a favor and never come up with any more names. Thank you for deciding to take Naruto's name right out of Jiraiya's first book, The Tale of the Gutsy Ninja. I'm sure with enough times being stood up for some secret training must have had her wonder what it was you were really doing, as I'm sure with her teaching you her clan's jitsu one after another, she saw you train and have trained with you before. So when she did show up out of the blue, it must have caught you off guard. But you having completed your training, it was now your turn to teach her something no one else could teach her.
Master Jiraiya left soon after for his mission and told me not to overdo it. Now that I think about it, he must have sensed Kushina hiding behind the trees and wanted to give us some alone time. Saying he had to go on a mission must have been his way of telling her she can come out now. We did meet up earlier that day, but I didn't expect her to apologize for lashing out at me, since it was me who canceled our engagement. She saw the finished jitsu that I've been working on, and I told her I wanted to perfect the jitsu bad enough to even cancel our appointment together, because the jitsu I was crafting was meant to protect her. Since we're in the middle of a war, we never know when she might be called out to the front lines, and I wanted her to have a jitsu that was specialized in facing other Jinchuriki or even a tailed beast itself. I didn't want to take the chance that I might lose her while I'm not around.
Being considered the embodiment of hatred at the time, Kurama must have not taken too kindly to that confession. Unlike the seal you placed on your son, this one had too many holes in it, or maybe the 9 tails was just that much of a chakra monster that his volume of chakra was just too much to contain. From what I was able to learn, Kushina had to always stay on guard or Kurama would hit his seal hard trying to break free. He even attacked you once his chakra was outside of her body while he faced her inside of the seal for control.
That was a pretty nasty hit he got me with. But little did he know I was also working on another jutsu, having studied the barrier seal on top of the many different sealing jutsu I learned from both her and Master Jiraiya. I gave Kurama the gift I had created just for him.
That was one gift Kurama didn't see coming, as you not being a member of either the Senju or the Uzumaki clan was augmenting her tetragram seal right on the spot. But unlike any normal Uzumaki sealing technique, you were recreating it in your own style. If I was to guess, you were adding the functions of the barrier seal around the village to the seal, and in doing that in sense was reconstructing a new seal. It was at that moment that Kurama acknowledged you not as some snot-nosed brat, but a shinobi of Hashirama's caliber. The same person who brought all but the One-Tails to submission.
Master WB, Hashirama was one of the few ninja in all of history that could go head-to-head with a tail beast. The third Raikage of the Cloud Village, the fourth Kazekage of the Sand Village, the two perfect Jinchurikis and Killer Bee in the fourth Water Shadow. And if you add Minato to that list, makes 6 shinobi.
That list might be a bit off, as the fourth leader of the Mist Village for years was under a genjutsu placed on him by Obito, so it's hard to say if he tamed the 3 tails or if it was a display on how powerful Obito was in the usage of genjutsu, as not only did he place the fourth under on, he also kept the 3 tails in check during that whole time too. This almost could have been payback for what they did in the third Shinobi War to Rin. Obito turned that village upside down without a care in the world. But back on topic, Minato, with that new seal you placed on Kushina and embedding your very chakra into her seal, together the two of you managed to make sure that was the last time Kurama would attempt to break out of his seal or even have a chance to. From what the Anabu guards said on Kushina, sealing, the older she gets, the stronger her sealing jitsu becomes. So it's safe to say that the new seal would just grow in strength as time passes. Now, as the Third Shinobi War continued, many smaller countries and villages were caught up in its wake. The battles and the missions you were on unled had you clash with some of the strongest shinobi of the time. Many didn't make it out of the encounters alive, but those that did made sure the elders of their village agree on one thing. The moment you take one step onto the battlefield, that battle is to be considered lost and instructions to retreat were ordered. Even the tag team duo of A and B of the Cloud wasn't able to hold you at bay, nor did they try to stop you when you retreated along with the rest of your team. In time, the name of the Leaf's Yellow Flash was world-renowned, and even after you were assigned to train the next generation of shinobi, that didn't slow you down as you fostered 2 of the strongest shinobi of their generation.
Well, I only passed on the same teaching that was passed on to me, and to make teamwork the cornerstone of their mindset, which in Kakashi's case was difficult due to the loss of his father, and once Obito and Rin was gone from his life, if it wasn't for Guy, Kakashi would have been consumed by guilt.
For the many losses and feeling he mismanaged the war, the third stepped down and appointed you the next Hokage. From what I was able to learn, there wasn't many unusual things that transpired during your reign as the fourth Hokage. But those that didn't like being overlooked for the position either tolerated it, went into hiding, and nurtured their own forces to one day gain control, or left the village entirely having their name placed in the bingo book. In time, you too became a father, but that was both the happiest and worst night of your entire life. Some masked shinobi managed to get into the village undetected, also killing all of the guards as he made his way to steal the 9 tails, but the only thing standing in his way was you. Being a father myself, I'm sure this placed you between a rock and a hard spot as he took the baby right when you were about to reinforce the weakened seal.
It might have looked that way, but I wasn't. Naruto was top priority. Even in a weakened state, Kushina could take care of herself. Naruto was just born, so getting him to safety outweighed everything else. And once he was safe, I would go and get Kushina, but I was a bit late as the 9 tails was extracted from her, but I did manage to place her with Naruto. When I arrived back in the village, I saw the destruction the 9 tail caused, and it didn't take long for it to realize where I was. The masked man thought he could get the drop on me, but he saved me the trouble of having to draw him out. Being able to enter the village undetected meant he had to have been a leaf shinobi. The only problem was only one person could control the 9 tails. Whether he was Uchiha Madara or not didn't matter, as I put a stop to his plans and freed the 9 tails from his control.
With the help of Gamma Bunta, you were able to catch Kurama off guard, having been just released from the masked man's control. With Kushina's help, you sealed half of Kurama's chakra inside of your newborn son and the other half in yourself. Because not only was a baby too small of a vassal to contain the entirety of the 9 tails chakra, the seal you used was one even stronger than the seal you modified years ago.
There was 2 things that I was convinced of. One is that masked man that attacked us would bring a catastrophe to the world. And 2, the one that will stop him will be Naruto. Somehow I just knew he would blaze open a future as a Jinchuriki the world has never seen.
And a Jinchuriki like no other he was.
I'm from outer space. I got Milky Way for blood, evolution in my veins. I'm gone, hopping far away. I'm ruminating now, make a move, start away. I've been dreaming of a fire for a long time. I had a vision from the best and what a cold sign. Artificially intelligent new AI.
Too fast and present and fine.
Yeah, I'm a missing link of this illusion. I am not really here about an intrusion. I don't really sing, I just flow. I don't need gravity, I just need roll. When I move, it's an earthquake. Whoa, I will never ever fall, never stumble. And I don't need to be humble. Break down walls like Jericho crumble.
The Fourth Shinobi War was a war of all wars, with nearly every one of the greatest and strongest shinobi since the dawn of the formation of the Great Village system were seen fighting in this war. Naruto, with the aid of Killer Bee, flipped the war on its head, and soon he led the allied forces from the front lines. But when things were beginning to look gloomy, you and the other Hokage were released from the belly of the Reaper, and upon arriving you four were that needed moral push for them to win when all looked lost. And to say the four previous Hokage wasn't the best backup anyone could ask for would be an understatement. Not only was your entrance on the level of Optimus Prime's was in the original Transformers the movie, but you also managed to redirect the 10 Tails Tail Beast Bomb to the ocean, on top of already setting markers around it, as well as nail a superhero landing. What made it worst was that you still had time to chit-chat with your son before the rest of the Hokage showed up. But you wasn't done raising the bar with that, as you also showed that even in death you were a perfect Jinchuriki donning a chakra cloak similar to Naruto's. At the time this would have been seen as an ass pull, making you a Mary Sue, but turns out you're kinda used to beating on Kurama. So, while Naruto was trying to hype up how badass his dad was to Kurama informed him he knew better than anyone about your caliber. Hell, you even had a marking on yourself that allowed you to teleport shadow clones, and even have the shadow clones teleport the main body to itself. And it was when you went to end it for good that you saw who was behind your death and the state of the world.
If I was to groom anyone to be my successor, it would have been Obito. But to think he was the one behind the mask was devastating. When I looked around, the only thing that came to mind was that all this was my fault. If I would have just seen if there was a chance he could have survived, none of this would have happened. When I fought him those many years ago, something felt off. I should have realized it was him even when I knew something didn't feel right. Controlling the 9 tails made me think that it was Uchiha Madara, but that was just a stretch. And there were no Uchiha that has gone rogue close to that masked man's caliber. Even the death of the clan could have been avoided if
Madara was just too good with words, and he not only had Obito indebted to him, but took everything from him also just so he could use his despair to instill his way of thinking. Even your son was on the verge of becoming like Obito if it wasn't for Iruka being a big brother to Naruto, pulling him off of the ledge, and after many years being both in and out of the village, Jiraiya gave him a grandfatherly affection the third never showed Naruto. Those two and the children of the friends of yours shaped the current Naruto. Your failsafe you placed in motion is what saved the world time and time again, as your son was just too stubborn to leave the path you laid before him.
Words. They may be, if not the most powerful weapon a person could have, and it was my son's words from the heart that uplifted everyone from the despair we were facing. And falling behind his lead, we managed to defeat Obito, even as the victor Naruto didn't want no harm to come to Obito. Having half of Kurama inside myself, I was connected to Naruto, and I saw the conversation he and Obito had. From the moment he met Madara, Obito was manipulated into becoming a pawn. Obito was both pure of heart and soul, but was darkened by Madara into the person that was before us.
2 shinobis returned from that speech he gave Obito, as you two were able to let go of the guilt you had, and the return of the prime yellow flash of the leaf was renewed, even showing that you two are a perfect sage, even if you said you couldn't hold it as long as Naruto and Hiroshima could hold theirs. But what you wasn't aware of the fact that those two, like Sasuke and Madara, are transmigrations of the sage of the 6th path sons. With Madara having more of the 9 tails chakra and all of the 8 tails chakra minus a tail to allow B to survive the extraction, Madara was an even more powerful Jinchuriki than Obito was. You took on the role as support as Madara was beaten to near death by Guy. Once you gave your son your half of Kurama, placing him back into the fight, everything ended as you believed. As a shinobi, you were unmatched, with your only weakness is your sense of jutsu names. With that, I'll release your summons as Minato. You are without a doubt got to be in many people's top 5 strongest characters. Even though the author gave your god-level hype to the first Hokage, he later came back to pretty much say that your hype is equal to the first Hokage's, as there has only been 4 shinobi in all of history that has Kurama's respect, and you were one of them. Thanks for watching, and if you could subscribe as I dive into other worlds and give you stories from a character's point of view.